The courtroom had been silent for less than 10 seconds when Meghan's expression changed completely. A sealed evidence envelope, marked with Diana's private insignia, had just been placed before the judge, and the court clerk's next words struck like a public accusation. The papers had not been lost, they had not been destroyed. According to the court's findings, they had been concealed inside a private storage collection connected directly to Meghan, leaving the palace stunned and Prince William visibly shaken. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Meghan did not move as the High Court confirmed the charge. She had hidden Princess Diana's sealed papers inside a personal archive, omitted from an earlier royal document inquiry. The High Court is Britain's senior civil court, where major disputes over evidence and responsibility are examined. This mattered because the collection contained handwritten letters, a sealed memorandum about Diana's sons, and instructions meant to reach William and Harry only after both entered a later stage of public life. Harry watched his wife tighten her fingers around a pen. She did not write. The judge traced the papers between two secure locations, revealing they were moved after palace solicitors requested an inventory. Palace solicitors are lawyers who handle legal matters for the royal household. Their request should have forced every item into the open, yet this collection was pushed deeper into private custody. That turned secrecy into intention. William received the court summary in a palace office. He read it, placed it face down, and walked to the window. When an aide asked whether the king should be informed, the prince answered that his mother's voice had been kept from him for years. Diana's papers could explain choices she made for both sons, and concealing them had denied him more than information. It had denied him the right to hear her words equally with Harry. Then the clerk raised the cream-colored envelope with gloved hands and read its handwritten label aloud. Harry lowered his eyes. Meghan turned toward him, searching for support, but he did not return her gaze. The recovered pages carried numbered seals, and their sequence exposed one final shock. A sheet was missing. Someone had removed it after the collection was secured. William's demand reached the palace before any statement could be prepared. He wanted to know who first gave Meghan access, and whether Harry had known all along. But the discovery inside that courtroom was only the beginning, because behind the sealed papers stood three people bound together by grief, marriage, and a betrayal none of them could explain away. For William and Harry, the court's revelation was not simply about ownership, procedure, or missing evidence. It reopened the oldest wound in their lives. Diana's papers carried the possibility of words they had never heard, guidance they had never received, and truths their mother may have intended them to discover together. Yet now those words had surfaced through Meghan's private archive, forcing Harry to stand between the woman he married and the brother who believed part of their mother had been taken from him. William felt the loss before he understood the legal details. The sealed memorandum, a private written instruction meant to be opened under stated conditions, could explain what Diana expected from both sons when duty, marriage, and public pressure began pulling them apart. That mattered because her voice had become more than memory. It was guidance neither brother could replace, and every hidden page widened the distance between them. Harry carried a different burden. He had defended Meghan through years of palace conflict, yet the court record now tied the collection to arrangements made through their household. Inside a private consultation room, she told him the papers had been protected, not exploited. Meghan insisted she feared palace officials would seize the bundle, bury its contents, and use Diana's words as another weapon in a family war. Harry did not accept the answer easily. He admitted, through a recorded statement given to the court, that he knew about one letter, but had never seen the complete sealed bundle. Then he asked why Meghan had never told him the collection remained intact. She said silence had seemed safer than surrender, but safety built on concealment had already become betrayal. Across London, William received a documented summary confirming that the memorandum addressed "my elder son" and "my younger son" separately. Neither passage could be released until the missing page was recovered, because the numbered seals proved the document was incomplete. The prince understood the cruelty immediately. Diana had written to each son, yet neither could hear her full message, while the truth remained broken. Silence hardened inside the consultation room. Harry removed his wedding ring, turned it slowly between his fingers, and asked whether Meghan had moved the papers after the palace inquiry began. She looked down. Her silence answered before her words did. Investigators now returned to the night the papers first changed hands, when a private memorial gathering ended with a locked case, a whispered instruction, and one decision no one could undo for years afterward. And when the court reconstructed that forgotten night, it uncovered the single decision that transformed a private act of protection into a secret capable of dividing Diana's sons. Years before the judge opened the evidence file, the sealed papers had appeared during a private memorial gathering held in Diana's name. There were no cameras, no public statements, and no expectation that the evening would become important. Yet one quiet exchange after the guests departed changed everything. A retired custodian placed a locked document case into Harry's hands. Meghan was standing beside him. By sunrise, the case had left the property, and the official royal archive had never been told it existed. Margaret Ellison had guarded Diana's papers for years. A document custodian is the person trusted to preserve, catalog, and protect private records. She believed the sealed case belonged to both William and Harry, because any final instruction from their mother could shape how they understood duty, family, and each other. Yet the brothers' long conflict frightened her. Margaret feared palace channels would split the collection, bury difficult pages, or turn a mother's words into institutional property. The decisive moment came after a private memorial dinner at Althorpe, Diana's family estate. Margaret placed the locked case before Harry and told him, "Your brother must be present when this is opened." Meghan heard every word. William was not called. Harry planned to contact him the next morning, but the argument that followed changed the course of everything. Meghan warned that palace officials would take control before either son could read freely. She urged Harry to place the case with a trusted private records manager for 72 hours. Harry agreed, telling himself caution was not deception, but doubt followed him outside. He watched the case being loaded into a car, raised one hand as if to stop it, then let the vehicle leave. Then Margaret died unexpectedly. The only independent witness was gone, and the temporary arrangement hardened into silence. Court records later showed that Meghan authorized another transfer without Harry's signature. The move happened during the same week William's lawyers began searching for unregistered Diana correspondence. Private material never entered into an official archive list. Harry learned this timeline through a documented court reconstruction and could no longer dismiss what it meant. Meghan had not merely protected the case. She had moved it when discovery was closing in. Years later, that lifted hand beside the departing car became the moment Harry could not forgive himself for. William now had the answer he feared, but he still needed to hear the truth directly from Meghan, with no lawyers present and no prepared statement. The past had finally revealed how the papers vanished, but the most painful reckoning would come when William entered the room and asked Meghan why she had kept his mother's words from him. William did not raise his voice when he entered the private chamber, and that made the confrontation more dangerous. Meghan was already seated, with Harry standing behind her and two untouched glasses of water between them. The prince placed a copy of the court finding on the table. Then he asked one question. Why had she decided that she possessed the right to control Diana's final words? Meghan looked toward Harry, but William stopped her. He wanted the answer from her. William had rejected a lawyer-led discussion because legal procedure could not explain the wound beneath it. A court finding is the judge's formal conclusion about what the evidence proves, and this one mattered because it placed Diana's words inside a chain of concealment. Harry attended because the case had first been placed in his hands. He came ready to defend Meghan, yet the reconstructed transfer records had stripped certainty from his voice. William leaned forward and told her caution could not excuse years of silence. She had made herself the gatekeeper of a dead mother's voice, denying both sons the choice Diana intended them to share. Meghan answered sharply. She accused the palace of controlling Diana's legacy whenever it threatened royal comfort, and she said the prince had become inseparable from the system that once silenced his mother. Harry watched the argument harden. William produced Margaret's handwritten instruction, preserved in the court's documented evidence file. It stated that neither brother could open or relocate the case without the other's knowledge. Harry read the line twice. Then he looked at Meghan and realized she had seen it before authorizing the second transfer. Harry asked whether she had removed the missing page. Meghan said no. Her voice weakened, but she did not retreat. She admitted that Adrian Vale, the private records manager who controlled the archive, had been alone with the collection before it moved. That was how she knew who might have taken it. William pushed his chair backward and stood. Meghan rose too, saying she had tried to stop Diana from being owned by the crown again. Harry remained seated between them, staring at the instruction that proved fear had driven every side across a line. William placed the recovered case key on the table. He refused to touch it again until the missing sheet returned. Meghan's admission now pointed toward Vale, and toward the legal authority deciding whether she would lose access forever under the court's strict supervision alone. The confrontation had exposed the family's anger, but the final decision would not belong to William, Harry, or Meghan. It would belong to the person empowered to decide who could ever touch Diana's papers again. While the royal family argued over betrayal, one woman sat alone with the recovered inventory and made the decision that would determine the papers' future. Dame Eleanor Harcourt, the court-appointed custodian, had no loyalty to palace pride or family reputation. Her authority came from the judge, and her instructions were exact. Identify every person who handled Diana's collection, recover the missing sheet, and prevent further interference. When Meghan's request for private access reached her desk, Eleanor did not hesitate. She stamped it refused. Eleanor accepted control for 12 months, placing the papers beyond both the Sussex household and the palace archive. An independent custodian is a neutral person appointed to protect disputed material, while a court decides its future. Her mandate allowed her to question former staff, inspect storage records, and suspend anyone who had moved or withheld evidence. That mattered, because whoever controlled the collection could shape what William and Harry learned from their mother, and when they learned it. Charles read the appointment order inside his study and felt the humiliation. The king set the document down and admitted, in a recorded conversation with his private secretary, that the monarchy had failed to protect trust inside its own family. Court supervision meant royal authority was no longer enough. It also meant Diana's memory had become evidence in a dispute the palace could not contain. Meghan received the refusal while sitting beside Harry. She said nothing at first. The protective role she believed she had assumed had been stripped away, while he saw Eleanor's decision as the unavoidable price of secrecy. Harry told her that protection without honesty had become control. Meghan looked away, wounded by the judgment, but unable to deny its force. Eleanor then uncovered the detail that changed the investigation. Adrian Vale had photographed every page before the second transfer, and the digital index proved the missing sheet was present when Meghan first authorized relocation. A security log showed only 2 access cards entering the archive before it vanished, hers and Vale's. Eleanor placed both cards side by side, circled the times, and found a 17-minute gap when the camera feed had been disabled manually. Then she read Diana's instruction that both sons must receive the papers together. Her professional distance cracked. She whispered that secrecy had already defeated a mother's final wish. Eleanor ordered Vale to appear for questioning. But before he arrived, copies of the court summary began moving through the palace, carrying consequences faster than any ruling could stop. Eleanor now held the legal power, yet the emotional punishment began elsewhere. As doors closed, invitations vanished, and Meghan confronted the first visible cost of what the court had exposed. The fallout did not arrive through a dramatic proclamation. It came through smaller acts that carried greater cruelty. A security code stopped working. A scheduled meeting disappeared. A palace liaison sent a message stating that all communication concerning Diana's legacy would now pass through the court-appointed custodian. Meghan read the notice twice. Then she tried the archive portal again, only to watch the same words appear on the screen. Access permanently suspended pending final judgment. Meghan closed the laptop and entered the next room. The palace had frozen Sussex access to Diana's archival material until the court decided whether disclosure orders had been broken. A disclosure order is a legal command requiring evidence to be produced. This mattered because access no longer depended on family ties. It depended on whether the court trusted those requesting the papers. Harry faced limits of his own. He could submit questions through Dame Eleanor, but he could not inspect the collection or remove copies from supervised review. That restriction cut because Diana's words were his inheritance of memory, yet secrecy had made him a risk around them. The court had not taken away his place as her son. It had taken away his freedom to approach her message alone. Meghan found him packing correspondence into a box. Harry did not look up when she entered. He said he no longer knew which memories belonged to them and which had been shaped by choices she made without him. Meghan tried to explain again, but he answered that protection had become concealment. Still, his anger turned inward too. He had watched the original case leave Althorpe without calling William, and that failure now stood beside hers. Then Adrian Vale disappeared. His office had been emptied, his phone disconnected, and a courier receipt confirmed that he sent a slim package to London 48 hours before the hearing. The documented delivery record showed it was addressed not to Meghan, but to William. Palace security had locked it inside a vault because the sender could not be verified. A palace officer placed the package before William. The prince recognized Diana's sealing mark and reached toward it, then stopped as Harry entered the room. His anger softened when he saw his brother's exhaustion. Harry asked whether they could open it together, exactly as their mother had required. With Meghan excluded and no officials present, both men prepared to learn whether Vale had returned the missing page or delivered something worse. The court had separated Meghan from the archive, but in doing so it created the one moment Diana had demanded from the beginning: her sons, alone together, facing the truth side by side. There were no advisors in the room when William cut the string around the package. Harry stood opposite him, both men aware that years of anger had led to this small table and one unopened envelope. Inside lay the missing page, a signed statement from Adrian Vale, and a brief handwritten note from Diana. William began reading first, but his voice failed midway through the second sentence. Harry continued for him. For the first time in years, neither brother tried to win. Harry read Vale's signed account slowly. The former records manager admitted removing the page because he believed Diana's collection would ignite a public war. A memorandum is a written statement preserving instructions or decisions, and the recovered sheet completed hers. That mattered because the full bundle could now be released legally to both sons under supervision. Vale claimed he acted alone, but Meghan's concealment had given him the chance. William opened Diana's handwritten note. She warned that institutions, marriages, and public pressure might one day pull her sons apart. Yet neither man, she wrote, should ever turn her memory into a weapon against the other. Those words cut deeper than any court finding, because both brothers had done exactly what she feared. They had used grief to defend distance, and loyalty to justify silence. Harry broke when he reached the line, telling the younger son not to confuse isolation with freedom. His voice disappeared. William placed the note down and admitted that duty had made him judge his brother before trying to understand him. The prince did not excuse the secrecy, but he finally separated Harry's mistakes from the pain that had driven them. Then the final truth emerged. Diana had left no secret inheritance, political command, or attack on the monarchy. Her message was personal: protect each other, share her words, and never allow any spouse, household, or institution to claim exclusive ownership of her legacy. Vale's documented statement cleared Meghan of physically taking the page. It also confirmed she knew the archive was incomplete and never reported the loss. Harry absorbed both truths without defending her. Harry moved beside William, and the brothers read the final paragraph together, with Diana's envelope between them. William promised he would not use the findings to destroy Meghan publicly, but her control over the papers had ended. Harry accepted the boundary without argument. Their private decision now prepared the court's final ruling, even as the outside world began choosing heroes, villains, and victims. Inside the room, Diana's words had ended the brothers' battle. But beyond those walls, the public was only beginning to react to the woman accused of hiding them. By dawn, the court revelation had escaped the legal chamber and become a global spectacle. Broadcasters interrupted regular programming. Commentators argued over whether Meghan had protected Diana's memory or controlled it. Outside Kensington Palace, a crowd gathered beneath the gates, carrying flowers, handwritten notes, and photographs of the late princess. Yet one newspaper front page captured the fury more powerfully than any debate. A sealed cream envelope beneath the words, "Diana's voice," hidden from her sons. Meghan watched the coverage alone after Harry left to meet William. The court had released a controlled summary, a limited public account designed to confirm essential facts without exposing every private page. It stated that she withheld the location of Diana's papers and failed to report that one sheet had disappeared. That mattered because secrecy had blocked both sons from receiving words their mother intended them to share, turning a private choice into a public breach of trust. The summary also named Adrian Vale as the man who physically removed the missing page. That distinction stopped the world from falsely calling Meghan a thief, but it did not free her from responsibility. She watched commentators reduce her motives to ambition and calculation. For the first time, her claim of protection sounded powerless beside the damage her silence had caused. Harry refused to answer anger with anger. Through a written statement authorized for release, he acknowledged mistakes, respected the court's process, and confirmed that Diana's papers belonged equally to both sons. He would not attack the palace. He would not excuse Meghan. His restraint signaled that loyalty to his wife no longer required denial of his brother's loss. Then a broadcaster revealed that William had personally asked palace officials not to describe Meghan as a thief. The prince wanted accountability without vengeance. Charles followed with a new archival charter, a formal rule governing how royal records are held, declaring that no spouse, household, or palace department could privately control material intended for several family members. Outside Kensington Palace, an elderly woman placed a card beside Diana's photograph. It read, "Her words were for her boys, not for a battle." Cameras caught the message, and the crowd fell silent. Charles watched the footage inside his study, switched off the television, and told William that the monarchy could not demand public trust while allowing private truth to be hidden. The king's admission carried the palace toward judgment, while Meghan faced one final choice: defend every decision, or admit what secrecy had cost. The world had delivered its anger, sympathy, and condemnation, but only the final ruling could determine whether Meghan would leave the scandal defiant or changed by the damage she could no longer deny. When the final judgment was delivered, there was no dramatic shout and no victorious celebration. Meghan stood beside Harry and listened as the court separated intention from consequence. She had not stolen Diana's missing page. She had not created the sealed collection. But she had knowingly concealed its location, moved it without joint authority, and allowed private fear to override a mother's explicit instruction. The verdict did more than remove her access. It forced everyone involved to confront the difference between protecting a legacy and possessing it. Meghan remained silent as the court transferred Diana's papers to an independent memorial trust governed by representatives chosen by William and Harry, with Dame Eleanor overseeing its first year. A memorial trust is a protected body created to preserve personal material under agreed rules. That mattered because no household, spouse, or palace department could again claim private control over words intended for both sons. The ruling barred Meghan from relocating, reproducing, or managing the collection. Her fear of palace interference explained her actions, but it did not excuse concealment. Outside the chamber, she told Harry in a recorded exchange that she had believed control would keep the papers safe. Now she understood that withholding them from William had repeated the silencing she claimed to oppose. Harry stayed beside his wife, but he refused to weaken the truth. He told her their marriage could survive only if protection stopped, meaning secrecy between them. Meghan accepted the boundary. William received her written apology and chose restraint over revenge, saying trust would return through actions rather than public words. Then the brothers completed what Diana had asked. William and Harry deposited the collection together, each placing one hand on the archive case before it was locked. Charles signed the new archival charter before both sons. The charter, a formal written rule governing future control, declared that family memory could not be protected through hidden rooms or unquestioned authority. Harry asked whether their mother would have forgiven them. William answered that she would have demanded they stop using her memory as the reason they remained apart. Meghan left neither fully condemned nor fully vindicated. Her motive contained love, but her secrecy caused betrayal. The victory belonged to Diana's wish, not the palace or the Sussex household. And when the archive door finally closed, Diana's papers were no longer hidden, her sons were no longer standing on opposite sides of them, and the monarchy was left with a permanent lesson. Love cannot be preserved through secrecy, because a protected truth that is denied to others eventually becomes a betrayal. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.